think that he's good for you.
How do you know what's good for me?
That's my opinion! Don't you get it? Why can't anybody have an opinion but you?
That I don't think that he's good. That I
Good morning. Thank you so much for joining Sandra P's Gen Extra. This is a pre-recorded on Below Deck Salt Lake City crossover. I waited until we had both episodes, so we have episodes 1 and 2. Next to me is Captain Jason. He is the captain of the Katrina, which is the vessel, the beautiful vessel that is down under. It was in Canawan. They went to a few other gorgeous locales with our ladies from Salt Lake City. They had 4 days aboard this vessel, and there was actually 2 episodes that they were able to do. They might have squeezed out 2 on Salt Lake City as well. But the crew, we get to finally see it from behind the scenes of the crew. So again, this is a pre-recorded. I am Sandra P. Gen Extra. I'd like to throw in a little bit extra to you. Thank you for joining me while it is playing. So if you're for the live pre-record, I'll interact with you in the chat. If you are Team Replay, thank you so much, Team Replay, for joining me. I appreciate you. And help a growing channel. When you see the hype feature, go ahead and consider giving me a hype. I would appreciate it so much. Thank you. Please like, share, subscribe. Helps keep the channel in the algorithm. Thank you so much. This is a recap, opinion. Some things will be brought in, other things will be left out. But I thank all of you so much for joining me. Okay, so there are 2 episodes. This is season 4 for Below Deck Down Under. Episodes 1 and 2. The first one is The Real Housewives of Down Under, and then next was The Night of the Living Dead. So that was at the end of their trip where they get into makeup and they do kind of a zombie night. I love this show because it actually shows Captain Jason how he puts together his crew. And interestingly enough, we have Joao. Joao is a young man. What they've done with him, Joao is, I'll show you everybody. Joao is listed as a second officer, but we find out that Joao has captain stripes. And what he's doing, he's joining Captain Jason on this voyage. I think he wants to be back on TV. And he says that Captain Jason is a big brother to him and he can learn so much. So I found that really interesting. I'll go ahead and introduce everybody. This is the Below Deck fan page. So, of course, you see Captain Jason right next. Let me see. I may not be able to do that. I wish I should have put it on there. That's Daisy. Daisy is the chief stew. We're going to see and hear Captain Jason. Of course, Daisy is chief stew. All of them have quite a bit of interaction with the ladies, but the deckhands, not as much as the people that are hands-on with them. But at the very beginning, we see that one of the people, Jo, she gets news from home that her grandfather is really ill and she is like undone. And she said, I have to go home. And she did. Captain Jason was very understanding. That's Chef Ben. Chef Ben is an interesting character. He has his own catering business. It's a very successful catering business. I think Ben is another one that misses being on TV. So Ben is there. This is his sous chef, Alicia Harris. Alicia Harris is an interesting person. She, in her interview, said that she never went to culinary school. She has very little experience as a chef, even a sous chef, working under a chef, anything to do with the kitchen, but she enjoys food. So Chef Ben hired her, and he's surprised and she's surprised that they're going to have some conflict. Everything that he tells her to do, from cutting up a pineapple to baking muffins in the morning, he has to be so hands-on. It's almost as if he might be better off without someone who just didn't know what they were doing. Her fault for interviewing, and then almost his for allowing her to take this job. This is Jenna. She's one of the stews. She does a lot of the inside of the cabin, hands-on type stuff. One moment. I have to go. I hear an alarm of some sort going off. I apologize. Okay, this is Mike Durant. Mike with the hair. We can see his hair when we are with the ladies. And he asked them at one point, "Do you like my hair?" They're like, "Yeah." So we'll see Mike's hair. Mike is a character. He's Stu, so he works under Daisy. He's also one of the deckhands, and everyone is under Captain Jason. Jo is the one, y'all, that got the news about her granddad. She had to leave early, so we're not going to get to see her on these episodes. I'm not sure if she comes back or not, which is why they have her there. I don't know. Eddie is one of the deckhands. Eddie's very playful. What I do love, we're going to get backstory of the crew, so we don't just get to see the ladies pushing them around. We get backstory. Betul is a deckhand. She's not under Daisy. She's not cleaning cabins and this kind of stuff. She's doing some physical work. We see a scene from her where she says she comes from a culture where she said it was a man's world and they didn't expect girls to even go to school. Her grandfather fought for her to go to school. So Betul is living her dreams and her best life. She loves being at sea. And I find it really interesting when they dock and they throw down a heavy anchor and everything. Betul is right out there, ready, willing, and able. So she's great. So that is the introduction of the crew. I'll refer to them again as we go through. Again, Jo had to leave because her granddad was ill. Bronwyn arrived late. It was a whole ordeal to get Bronwyn on shore. What Bronwyn was doing to me was unnecessary. She wanted to be seen. She came in that floaty, that horrific looking yellow dress. It's supposed to be high fashion, more like costume. One of her good friends, Kate Chastain, used to be on the Below Decks as well, but now she's more traders, different things in the Bravo verse. People love her. I'm not a huge fan of Kate. I don't mind sarcasm. I find that kind of funny, but there's something to Kate that's a little annoying. She was on the after show for some reason. She doesn't appear on Below Deck at all anymore, but she was on after show, giving her opinion. She's good friends with Bronwyn. She was sitting with Chef Ben, and Chef Ben says, "Oh, Bronwyn," so she has what they call FU money. I've heard that term. It's pretty funny, but she is a good friend of Bronwyn, but she was kind of throwing off on Bronwyn's outfit. That leaned more toward costume. We remember when Brittany first came on Salt Lake City and told Bronwyn, "I like your costume." Bronwyn had a fit. "Oh, you can't call that a costume. You can't sit here and me and Mary and say costume." But Bronwyn, Kate is calling what you had on that floaty dress a costume. And I think also the term comedy came up. So I agree. As soon as they got there, we find out the living arrangements. Heather is the primary. When they boarded, as we saw in the Salt Lake City, everybody was lined up. The crew was really sweet. They're already down one. So Jo had already left. They wanted to get her off board before the guests even came on, and they got a chance to meet her. So this is a backstory. We find out that the crew's very short. And being one person short when you only have 7 or so people, and then 8 of the ladies, or however many of them there were, and they were very high maintenance. I don't know if they were being told to play that up or what, but we get a whole scene when the ladies first board. Heather's very inappropriate. She wanted to get into her swimsuit, but when she was taking off what she wore on board, she lost, it was very sheer. She was wearing nipple cover. She lost a nipple cover. Heather, she was flashing the lady. The girl turned around. I don't know if it was Betul or one of the other ones. This was very uncomfortable for staff. I don't like that. And then she set the whole staff on this wild goose chase for her nipple cover. And they were even telling Captain Jason that. So Heather, you're a nasty one. I'm watching her. Soon as Bronwyn gets there, Bronwyn did not want to share a room with Brittany. Brittany was trying to joke. Brittany is a clown, but she was joking. She invited Bronwyn in, showing her the stuffed animal, which became a big part later. When she played the recording, Bronwyn said, "I'm throwing that ish overboard." Kind of like yuck, yuck, yuck. But we know what happened later. Bronwyn wasn't joking. Bronwyn is a sneaky one. So she always planned to do that. I found the women really rude to the staff. Whitney is sitting down. She appeared to already be inebriated. "Can I get this kind of drink?" Heather's pulling someone. "Can I get someone to help me unpack?" Heather, you know your crusty self is able to unpack. I hate when people do that kind of stuff. I don't know that I would want anyone unpacking for me, whether I stay at a hotel or I'm on a cruise, which is my favorite way to travel for the past few years. I unpack myself because I need to know where my stuff is, where I'm putting my things. And I don't want to take time away from someone else. Now, would there ever be an occasion where I stayed somewhere and that is a service that I benefit from, or we are immediately doing something else and they offer it and I'm able to take advantage? Possibly. But the way Heather was, can you bring someone to our room and have them unpack Salt Lake City? I don't believe it at all. I don't believe it. I remember years ago, Real Housewives of New York, Ramona was doing the same thing. I need someone to unpack my clothes. I'm like, Ramona, you're a savage. You don't have people unpacking your clothes. So they're doing this. We get to see, I think they showed us on Salt Lake City, the Katrina is gorgeous. It is, but it's 3 levels. So the galley, the kitchen is downstairs. Staff's room is downstairs. They have very tiny cabins. They share. There's bunk beds. Captain Jason has his own quarters. Ben is in love with the galley. It is huge. Of course, he has Alicia in there with no experience. So that part, y'all, these 2 episodes are going to be a trip for the 2 of them. The first day they had a huge fight. It was one of the fights at lunch. Meredith is calling Brittany despicable. They were yelling at each other, arguing. Brownwyn ended up starting that fight. On the episode, they go into detail about what it was that Brittany told Brownwyn. But on the below deck, there's more drama behind what the crew is going through, the fact that they're short-staffed and they have to clean up behind these ladies. We know that Angie was sick. So she was sick when she first got there. She did take anti-nausea. She said she had taken 1 that day. Now, they were already sailing, so I don't know when she took it. Because Brownwyn came in late, they were already offshore. They were sailing. They had to send a water taxi for her. So for anybody, and I don't know if anybody told Angie K, you have to take that anti-nausea medicine before you start the activity, before you start sailing. So I'm not sure if that's why Angie K couldn't get a hold on it, or if it was something else. But we see one of the other deckhands, one of the stews, they really had to clean Mary and Angie K's cabin. And Mary had to have been a complete good friend, because I don't think that I could have roomed with her after that. With the sounds and all of that, I couldn't have dealt with her. At dinner, where Brittany and Meredith were getting into it, I think they focused it on a tiny bit. Glass was either thrown or dropped. Mike had to clean up a glass for their own safety. Ben was having a problem. He was trying to help Alicia plate. He was having a problem being so hands-on with her, running his whole huge galley, cooking for the people, all of their special requests, and the fact that now they're fighting and Daisy did not know like when to bring food out. Ben would say, are they ready for this course? You're supposed to introduce the course. The ladies would be screaming, shouting, cussing, throwing things to the point where it really interfered with service. So we saw that. Heather interrupted one of the arguments and says, wait a minute, Daisy wants to introduce the course. They zoom in on Heather a lot. Heather was very drunk. Heather had one of those Joker grins on her face, and she was really enjoying the fighting and the conflict and the arguments. I didn't see it for Heather toward the end of the season. I actually ended up not reviewing the last few episodes, including the reunion. I couldn't stomach Heather toward the end, but it was interesting to watch how she handled this. Daisy introduces the food. All the food looked really great. Chef Ben is amazing. I would eat anything he cooked. They put the food down. Heather's like, this looks so good. The fight kicks off again with Meredith and Brittany. And Heather's kind of enjoying it and watching them fight while she's eating. So I thought that was a trip. In the kitchen, Ben is being terribly rude to Alicia. He's a little annoyed now that Alicia does not know her job, and it's kind of breaking her down a little bit. Then he tried to play it off. Ben, I'm watching Ben. Ben might have the tendency to be a little bit abusive, in my opinion. When he was on one of his earlier shows, when he was full-time chef, he would talk to people like that frequently. We found out he was in a long-term relationship. He's no longer in. I bring this up because he did a little gaslighting thing. When I like you, I let you know that I like you by being a little sarcastic and kind of digging into you verbally and that sort of thing. And I'm like, no, Ben, that doesn't work. I'm sorry, there's another alarm. One moment. So I don't think that is what Ben's doing. I think He has a cruel streak, so you got to watch that. That's not a term of endearment if someone's cutting you down. So we see the scene, the dinner scene, where Heather jumps in. I think you're the source of the dirt to Lisa. That scene went on a lot longer, which we had heard, but we hear Heather, and I think they just did it on one of the previews, but I don't remember it in the episode. Heather's like, if you feel that way, get the F off the yacht, and tries to kick Lisa off. It is at night. Lisa jumps up. Don't come near me, Whitney's like, I'm coming near you. Everybody's drunk. Whitney's pointing, threatening to come over toward Lisa, who had established her boundaries. Don't come near me. Lisa's cursing her head off. She's on the phone. She calls her husband, John. And for some reason, Heather kicked her off. There's nowhere for her to go. They're already sailing. And Lisa ran down to, like, there's a far end of the yacht and then almost a little buoy off from the yacht. It was dark out there, everybody. Heather chases her down there. She's still trying to talk to Lisa. Lisa's crying. The whole thing was really crazy. And the fact that Meredith or no one else that could have smoothed things over a little bit went down, more so than Heather. I don't know. That bothered me a little bit. This was some mean girl, mean old lady stuff going on. Mean middle-aged lady stuff they had going on. The ladies were screaming and cursing in front of Captain Jason to the point he was helping Ben. He said, the ladies kind of want me to have dessert with them. Heather's the primary, so she asked me to do something. I'll try to do it. When he came out with the dessert, this is before they all jumped up and ran. He said, I'm not going back out there. He put their dessert down and he left. The cucumber was planted by Whitney and Heather, who thought they were going to put it in Lisa's suitcase as a joke. Very nasty. It embarrassed the crew. Mike ended up touching it, and the girl was like, don't touch that with your hands. We don't know what that's for. Heather, you're nasty. You're a very nasty woman. So Daisy is telling the crew, dinner is insane. I couldn't even tell when to bring the different service out. It looked really bad from these ladies' point of view. Daisy was telling the crew, she said, I had to interrupt World War III to even serve. And the crew was like, these ladies are in the middle of Canawan. All this beauty, all they're doing is cursing each other out, fighting each other. So I don't know. I hope they were playing this up for TV, but some of it I'm not sure. And the crew was repeatedly afraid to approach the table. So I found that they should have been embarrassed. Chef Ben gets a confessional. He said, I have no feedback as to whether or not they enjoyed the food. They didn't like it. I don't know if they like me or not. So, ladies, Heather is the primary. This was terrible. We see the scene where Brittany is flirting heavily with Captain Jason. The funny thing was, Bronwyn and Meredith were still sitting at the table. They're watching it and kind of laughing. So Bronwyn made up a whole story. Brittany was really flirty. Do you run this whole boat or this whole ship? I just want to know. And Captain Jason was like, yeah, actually, I do. And she said, well, do you want to kind of show me around? We could get out of here. Brittany was laying it on thick. Captain Jason's like, no, I'll show you around tomorrow, because it was late after all this had happened. And Bronwyn and Meredith are kind of laughing that Brittany's being shot down every time she shoots her shot at Captain Jason. We get a confessional from Captain Jason who says, Heather's the primary. Heather can flirt all she wants. All of her other friends flirting, I don't know. So Captain Jason really pays attention to who's paying him in the crew, who's leaving that tip. He even said that on Watch What Happens Live. Again, I told y'all at BravoCon, he and Daisy had a sit-down interview. They did the same thing on Watch What Happens Live. Captain Jason was asked flat out if he's ever had anything with Heather Gay. He said, no, Heather's lovely. She became a good friend. They spent a lot of time together talking, but Daisy said, did you F around? He said, no, not in any sense of the word. She said, even a kiss, even a little kiss? He said, no, not even that. So Captain Jason finally had to come out and say what it really is, because Heather Gay kept lying on him, y'all. He said he had zero interest in any of the ladies. So I found that interesting. And he was asked who flirted the hardest. He said Brittany. He was actually on Watch What Happens Live with Candace. Candace couldn't sit still. Candace was interrupting all of the questions. I'm sure she's familiar with the shows, but I hate when the guests talk over each other and do that. They were even playing a game. They were doing marry, kill, or shag. And Captain Jason was getting ready to give an answer. And here's Candace. No. Brownwin. I'm like, okay. And he said, it's his question. Captain Jason changed one of his answers. I wanted to know what he was going to say. He ended up saying marry Heather Gay. I forgot was between Brownwin and Whitney, whether it was, I forgot what it was because Candace ruined it. She piped up and kind of ruined it. Brownwin makes a point of sleeping outside. Remember, she and Brittany didn't have any kind of argument. Nothing went on. She did start the argument between Brittany and Meredith, which went on a little while. But she says, I'm going to sleep outside. And then later on lies about Brittany's going to be bringing people back to the cabin. She watched Captain Jason shoot Brittany down. So that wasn't what it was about. I'm not sure, but this was disruptive to staff. They had to actually, with her being on deck, they were trying to clean quietly, which doesn't really work. In the kitchen that morning, again, Chef Ben asked Alicia to slice something up. She didn't know how to do, medallion style. He needed lemons cut medallion style. She didn't know how to do it. She mentioned it to Daisy. Daisy's like, so we find out that Alicia has no culinary skills. Ben says, maybe I should have done a little bit better interview rather than accept something vague like I have a passion for food. But that's how some people, they take their word for it and get away with it. Because very few people could go sail on a mega yacht and just say, I have a passion for food, and then not put all kind of resume, CVs, whatever they call it. I don't think you get the job. So Captain Jason tells us they are going to Tobago Keys for a beach day. He says, hopefully the tranquility of the water can bring kind of calm vibes back to the Katrina. So yeah, this was really impacting the crew. I like that they did different confessionals with the crew. Most of the crew has a story that they love to sail or they love the water. We get a very touching story from, it was one of the young guys. Let me see what his name was. Eddie. Eddie tells us that his dad, they had a lot of kids in the family, wanted to go on vacation and sailing and that sort of thing. He never got a chance to, and he died relatively young in his 50s before getting to do any of that. So Eddie said he feels kind of blessed that he's able to live the life that his father didn't get to do. And it was more kind of like a life is so short type thing, so live it. In present times, y'all, that really is real. But I love when Eddie was telling that story. So the behind the scenes with the staff, we get to see Captain Jason directing everybody. They're staying on the walkie-talkies. We find out that there's some type of a docking issue with the anchor. So Betul and the guys, they're working on that. They get it done. We get a confessional from Betul saying, the way I grew up, just to see these ladies in paradise. We're in Canawan. We're docking on Tobago Keys today. And to have these ladies do all these fighting, she said, it's rich people problems. So these ladies, I know they're watching these episodes because I know they want to see how they were portrayed. None of you were portrayed well. The cast mentioned in one of their after shows, the one that was the friendliest to them, the most grateful to them, the least amount of trouble, Mary Cosby. And I always thought Mary seemed like she's high maintenance. I think that's because her staff at home is her family, people from her church. They kind of baby her. So maybe that's why we see Mary. I saw Mary as high maintenance, but the staff said they didn't get that from her at all. Heather, Whitney, all of them, most of them were menaces to the staff, and the staff was short. We get a scene where Alexia calls her mom complaining. The mother was funny. She said, what is his name? And Alicia says, Ben, Chef Ben. I thought the mother was going to take up. She said, poor Ben, he's probably upset because you don't know what you're doing. So I think the mother knew that Alicia wasn't qualified. She said, I have a thick skin, but I think that Ben is trying to chip away at my self-esteem. I kind of saw that too. I'm a little concerned for Alicia. She's having a hard time. The beach day and the underwater shots that they have are gorgeous. We see more of the scene where Mary and Meredith get into it. And Meredith, it looks like Mary just calls her, you're boring. It was some other kind of argument that went on with Lisa, Mary wanting to know Meredith and Lisa why they don't really take up for each other as much. I'm not sure what Mary had to do with it, but it ended up with them getting into it on the beach. Heather, we see really her arms almost like around Captain Jason, flirting with all the men, saying she'd ride him like a bronco. I think some of this might have veered to a little bit of harassment, because at some point the staff was getting kind of embarrassed. Joao was saying, whatever, he was joking that whatever they have to do to get a tip. And then Mike was saying, some of these ladies act like they want to just treat me like a little boy toy. I didn't see that from Lisa. We didn't see that from Meredith. Of course, Mary. Now, remember, Brittany's on this 30-day break, but I don't know that she's single. I won't put that on Whitney either. It was mainly Heather, who's a single woman. She's divorced, but very inappropriate to me. You can't make others uncomfortable. And then Brittany. Brittany was a man-eater. So the ladies, they get to snorkel, swimming with, as Heather said, freaking Nemo. She had a great time with the Stingray. And one of the staff was saying, again, in another confessional, I can't believe these ladies are spending so much time fighting. They're wasting all this time in paradise, and they're so blessed. So the staff was really paying attention to that. They were supposed to have lunch on deck with everybody. Heather changed it at the last minute. We get to see Daisy down in the kitchen now, concerned, like, how are they going to do this? Because she moved it from the deck to inside. Anytime there was any type change, them being one short, it would really cause a problem with the crew. I hope we find out eventually how much the tip actually was, because when I watch the show, that's one of the part I like to see. And then Heather and Whitney whisper they only want to have lunch with Angie and Mary. Whitney's like, yeah, we need a break. So Angie was feeling better. She finally did. She went to the beach with them, but she was able to also have lunch with them. Heather tells Daisy now she wants the ladies to be served in their room, and the four of them, Angie and Mary, Heather and Whitney, are going to have lunch. And Daisy's, okay, fine. You see her agree, smiling. And then she goes in the kitchen like, this is a disaster. Chef Ben's upset. He said, so now I got to go from family style to individual plating. And Alicia's a disaster. She can't even really plate. So this was a mess. Heather and Whitney are saying low-key lunch. They're chanting. Heather tries to make a moment out of everything. So Chef Ben is telling us in the confessional, he's giving us more details about family style versus plating. Y'all, I didn't even think of all that. He said, I'm an artist. I'm a chef. I like things to look visually pleasing as well. This salad that I made, family style, it's going to look like crap. Y'all, they showed us in the kitchen, him and Alicia and Daisy. They had their hands. I'm sure the hands are washed. They're going with their hands, no gloves, taking the family style salad and distributing onto smaller plates. So any change you make, it kind of makes a mess. So they have to physically put the food in these little bowls. Whitney's yelling out, Whitney, I hope you were playing this up. I had a hard day. How long before the food comes out? She's yelling to Daisy. We get a clock. It's 4:11. Lunch was to be served at 4. Whitney, shut up. It's 4:11. And y'all had 2 changes. They went from all of them eating lunch on deck to now just 4 of them and the other people in their room. Captain Jason tells us again, Heather's the primary, so her table gets served first, and then they'll serve the people in their room. Now, remember, they don't even have enough people to do all this. So dinner, they did have a peaceful lunch because everybody wasn't there to argue. Later on, dinner with the stupid costumes, y'all. This was Brownwyn's fault. During my original review, I kind of dragged Brownwyn a little bit about that. Angie, when she got hurt, y'all, her finger was so bloody and almost off. It was caught in the door and pulled. We see Captain Jason in his quarters. He's trying to eat his sandwich, and the walkie-talkie went off. There's yelling. Angie was screaming bloody murder, crying. Brownwyn had the stupidest look and laugh on her face. I don't really like Brownwyn that much anymore, y'all. She's kind of she's a disaster. She's a nasty person. So they were treating it like a joke until they see Angie's finger, and they were like, oh my God, go get Captain Jason. Because again, one of the guests had been hurt. So they had to go get him. Brownwyn was standing over there looking. She was just laughing like a weirdo, threatening to use the blood for their zombie costumes. this was terrible. So Captain Jason gives a confessional. Angie has the worst luck. She spent yesterday seasick. Now today she's having an accident. Angie's like, well, you have a small child. You used to people being accident prone. Jason says, not really, not that bad. He says she's dressed as a seahorse. So Captain Jason recognized that these women were foolish. They really were. I still blame Bronwyn. But Angie K, I wouldn't have followed this dummy with that. I wouldn't have. They decorated for zombie night. The staff was really into it, y'all. They liked it a lot. They got to put their fake blood and all this kind of stuff, the knives through their heads and all of that. Daisy said that zombie night couldn't have been more appropriate. She said these ladies were acting like Night of the Living Dead, the way that they were just walking around trying to, she said, chip at each other or pick at each other, something that she said. I agreed. As the staff was serving the dinner, Brittany brings up the TikTok with Seth. And it looks like it wasn't anything that was really cut out or anything. Meredith went from 0 to 100. My husband is not having an affair. Meredith started going crazy. So she said, Brittany saying something, somebody saw Seth with some woman. Daisy said, all this fighting at this point is white noise to me. She said, I thought the first night or two, maybe they would just settle into being on a small vessel with each other, but they're just going to yell the whole time. She said they've been doing that the whole time. We get a flashback of Lisa screaming her head off, Meredith about something else, almost every single person. Bronwyn yelling, Brittany yelling, Heather yelling. The only ladies they didn't show yelling was Angie K, because she stayed sick half the time, and also Mary. So then we see Captain Jason finally got to sit down to one of the servings with the ladies, and he was a good sport. He put his zombie makeup on. Chef Ben is able to leave the galley, and he comes in and has dessert with the ladies as well. So that was something I mentioned during the original reviews for Salt Lake City. I thought it was incredibly rude that the staff did not get to do that. Mary is telling Meredith that they're going to have that same boring argument they had on the beach. I don't know what that is about. Mary, why do you think Meredith is boring? I think Meredith doesn't share a lot with these ladies because she doesn't trust them. Y'all, they started arguing in front of the captain. And then Angie Case, we're going to ask the captain because there's something about Jared told Jason, which was Whitney's husband, that he covers Brittany's bills, and Brittany is denying it. And they're like, well, Jason, Captain Jason, would you say that? Would you say if you covered a woman's bills, would you tell a friend that? And then y'all talk about that. And Captain Jason's like, no, I wouldn't do that. Daisy walkie-talkies, and they immediately need Captain Jason for an emergency. Y'all, we find out that it's not an emergency. He said, Daisy, thank you so much for saving me. I hope these ladies are embarrassed when they see that. So we find out that they had a joint confessional, Daisy and Captain Jason. She called him away because the ladies were insufferable. So Heather, I don't think this man wants you. I don't think he likes you or your friends. At the end, the staff, which is the guys, Mike and Joao, all of them, they said they'll do almost anything for their tip. So they want to make the ladies happy. They give Brittany and Heather lap dances. The staff did a great job. The last stop they have is the Grenadines. Other beautiful scenery. These episodes are so pretty just to watch. Even with the conflict that they have, it's really pretty. The staff is up at 7. Alicia makes some horrible looking muffins. They're too big for the muffin tin, and they're not done in the middle. Ben telling her, you put these in here. He said, you don't fill it all the way up. Pastry is going to rise. He ended up throwing them away. He told her they looked like ish. He threw them in the garbage. She said, you couldn't even let the crew eat them. He said they were raw in the middle because you overfilled them. I don't know if Lisa's going to make it through this. Alicia's going to make it through the whole voyage. So we get a confessional where she's crying again about him trying to kind of chip her down, take her self-esteem. Alicia calls one of her former co-workers, Bree. We saw Bree on one of the earlier seasons. Bree tries to speak a little life into her and tells her to keep her head up. I'm sorry you're feeling this way. Don't feel like you have to stay there and take that, because Alicia said, I was living my best life in Canada. Things were perfect. I thought this would be fun. Now she's having a miserable time of it. Says she should have talked it more through. She's unqualified. This is a mess. She says she spends up to 15 hours a day in the galley with Ben, and all he does is criticize her. in fairness, Alicia, you don't know the job, and then you took this job. So the friend is telling her, try to stay if she can, but if not, don't feel like she's obligated to take that. So Whitney and Heather are in their room, y'all. They are tossing this disgusting cucumber around. This is a joke that fell flat. Everybody doesn't like those kind of rude jokes. Put it in your suitcase, Heather, if that's something you need and want. She was going to try to sneak it in Lisa's suitcase. So at the end, y'all, Captain Jason is in the front. He is steering the yacht. He's on the bridge. Alicia comes in there. She's talking calmly, having a hard time with Ben. This happened, that happened. She starts crying. She said that it's been only been a couple of days, and I don't know if I'll be able to take it. Captain Jason says, I don't want you to leave. I know you realize that we're already understaffed. And she said, I know, I want to make it, but I might be raising a right flag. I don't know if I can do it. So y'all, I don't know if Alicia's going to be able to stay on as the sous chef. It's her fault. She took the job unqualified. And then Chef Ben, he knows she didn't go to culinary school. There are many chefs and sous chefs that did not go to culinary school, but they're at least qualified and had some experience. Alicia's not that type person. So these 2 episodes were good. This was 1 and 2 of season 4, Below Deck, Down Under. Thank you so much for joining Sandra P. Gen Extra. And I may continue reviewing this. I watch it for pleasure. I wanted to review it because I had reviewed the Salt Lake City episodes that it showed up on. And I'm really intrigued with the crossover. I hope they do this again. I'd like to see other seasons of Housewives on this. So y'all, thank you so much for joining me. I hope everybody has a great rest of your day. I'm down live in the chat, and I'll speak a little bit later on some Bravo extras, Bravo news. Jill Zarin getting fired on her date off. Bye, Jill. You did it to yourself. So everybody, thank you, and I'll see you in the YouTube streets. Bye, everybody. Have a